Housing crisis in Miami.
The skyline continues to grow, so does the cost of housing.
It is significantly more expensive to live in South Florida than it used to be.
Miami, for example, is ranked the least affordable housing market in the U.S.
Miami is a paradise where everyone wants to live, but the housing reality paints a different picture. With soaring rent prices and limited affordable housing options, many residents are struggling to make ends meet. Let's explore the harsh realities of the affordable housing crisis in Florida. Giselle Pacheco is a 38-year-old woman, wife, and mom of 3 kids that has been experiencing some housing challenges.
Right now I'm working as a manager store in a flower shop. I'm living with my parents. We share the rent of a house. In my case, I'm trying to save money to see in the future I can get my own house. So we share that cost, so it's good for them. I help them and also they help me. The down payment, maybe it's the regular amount, but it's hard to save that amount when you are working and you also have another things to pay every month. It's very hard to get the amount. That is one of the biggest challenge I found.
Millennials, the so-called Generation Rent, face a daunting reality as they navigate through a landscape of skyrocketing prices and dwindling opportunities. For many millennials, the dream of owning a home feels like an unattainable mirage. They find themselves caught in a perpetual cycle of renting, unable to save enough for a down payment. Ned Murray is an economist that explores the connection between the millennials and the housing crisis in Florida.
Yeah, Miami really has become a tale of two cities when you look at it economically and financially. And it's grown even more so like that over the last, say, 5 years or so. We have so much global capital coming in here, and even capital from investors in other parts of the United States, particularly from the Northeast, and that has just driven the market prices up much greater than they were. I think a lot of people think that once you hit 6 figures as a household, 100,000, maybe not just yourself, but with your partner, to have a household income of 100,000, that seems to be sort of a benchmark for middle class. But we now know that with $100,000 income, you're still not going to be able to afford to buy a home in Miami-Dade. So that makes it very frustrating for young professionals.
In the wake of the pandemic's relentless grip on the world, millennials find themselves navigating treacherous waters. The great financial crisis in 2008 and the pandemic of 2020 both left them reeling financially and struggling to afford a home. 92% of millennial home buyers say inflation has impacted their purchase plans, leading 2 of 10 millennials to live at their parents' house. Minimum income required to afford a medium-priced home in Florida is well above the average millennial salary. With housing prices continuing to climb, the prospect of saving enough for a down payment becomes increasingly daunting. The median price of a home in Miami stands at a towering barrier, commanding an annual income of $143,187 to merely step foot into the realm of home ownership, with an average yearly salary of $66,433. For millennials in Florida, the prospect of saving enough to afford a home remains a distant horizon. Amanda, a millennial navigating the challenging landscape of housing affordability. Despite her best efforts, Amanda finds herself reliant on government assistance and sharing her living space with a roommate just to afford rent.
I live in assisted government housing with my best friend. I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. For instance, they rushed the construction of it. Maybe a year ago, there was a big storm, and most people's balconies and windows were leaking because they forgot to seal them properly. Most people's balconies, mesh door keeps falling off the railing because they forgot a piece. That's just the beginning. We don't have that much visitor parking, so a lot of us have to park on the side of the buildings, in the dirt, in a dark street where there's no light.
Renee Garcia is District 13 Miami-Dade City Commissioner and former Senator of Florida, who explains his views as city official.
Income has not stayed up to the high cost of housing, and again, it goes back to the supply and demand issue. The reason it's gone up so high is because there's been so much more demand on the market. When you had more of influx, you started to see more and more demand happening here. People were shooting up their prices. We had cases here that they went from one day paying $1,000 to the next day paying $1,500, and then 3 months later they're paying $1,750. We established some rental assistance programs to help those individuals with rent. Even mortgage assistance programs. But what happens with those programs, they sound great on the onset. But what happens when the money runs out? What happens when the program is no longer there? Because government programs come and go. Government programs always stay, especially at the local level. You can only do as much as you have. And this is why sometimes I try to pause those programs, because yes, while it's great to hear I'm being helped, I'm going to get some help, I'm going to get some relief for my rent, the moment that dries up, where do you go?
Joniret Tiwari, a 39-year-old mother of 2 boys who achieved the dream of owning her own home.
Tengo 2 maravillosos hijos, un adolescente y un niño que tiene 7 años. Trabajo actualmente, bueno, realmente he trabajado desde que llegué a Estados Unidos en esta empresa que se llama Carico International. Y desde el año pasado tomé la decisión también de estar en el mundo de los seguros, que son el mundo de los seguros de salud y de vida, también como asesora financiera. Realmente todo sacrificio tiene su recompensa. Claro, comprar una casa es una decisión difícil. Yo me recuerdo que una persona me dijo: Pili, felicitaciones, te compraste una casa. Y no solo eso, me recuerdo sus palabras muy duras. Te deseo suerte para que no te la quite el banco ahora. Si tú te pones a escuchar lo negativo, y más siendo inmigrante, te van a intimidar. Yo en 1 año y 4 meses, mi inversión le gané $110,000. Que vamos a suponer que se fueron entre gastos de cierre, inicial y entre otras cosas que pues... Sí, pero es que ya vamos por el 2024. Y Miami es una ciudad que es una mina de oro. Todo se multiplica, y más en bienes raíces.
Millennials, as they've gotten into their 30s in particular, have begun doing what their predecessors did. You know, the baby boomers. They want to buy a home. They want to be part of that so-called American dream, which is to own your own home, which means that you need to find a place where you can do that. So this is where we see a lot of the out-migration. Millennials moving to wherever that may be, here in Florida, maybe Orlando or Tampa, or other metropolitan areas where it's a lot more affordable, and they can buy that home, purchase that first home, and at the same time get a good paying job.
With my husband, around 100,000. For us, it's like a dream. We have a dream of get our own house for our family. Can keep saving more money, maybe settle my debts, so I can maybe wait 1 more year or 2 years to see if something changed. But I see that it's hard. It's hard. And if I want to get my goal, that is having my house, probably gonna start thinking moving to another place that will be easier.
Bi-weekly, anywhere between 800 something and 1,000 something, depending on how many hours I work. Hopefully, yes. Sometime within the next 5 years, I hope to have some kind of little house. Doesn't have to be extravagant. If I move up in the Starbucks company, if I choose to become a shift supervisor or something, I might be able to live on my own, but I hope not. I like living with my best friend.
Entonces empiezo a trabajar diferentes puntos, ¿sabes? La parte financiera, la parte de salud, la parte de Carico, y ahorita tengo un nuevo proyecto también. Entonces, pero mi mejor proyecto siempre ha sido, y el más difícil, ha sido ser madre. Para mí es sumamente fuerte ver todo lo que tienen que trabajar. Hay muchas mamás que yo he visto que tienen a sus hijos en el carro y están haciendo delivery de comida. Pero yo digo, ya va. que para mí son más admirables que las que son ejecutivas altas, porque no se rinden.